Hey, everybody. Thanks again. Lori Goldman here for joining us today on For the Sake of the Argument. Our guest today was Deputy Secretary of State, Aghogho Edevbie. I've been saying his name wrong for 10 years. And I think he cleared up a lot of questions that I had, and perhaps you as well, about, what kind of voting contraptions, devices are being used in Michigan, what safeguards he's implementing to make sure that our votes are accurate and safe and counted quickly, and many other things. Listen to it, catch future podcasts on all the social media platforms. And a side note, we had a scheduling conflict last week, so we weren't able to have our scheduled podcast, but we're back on track again. And lastly, I have a book. I have a ghostwriter, Cindy Cook, who wrote my story about why I started Femmes for Dems almost 10 years ago. It's called Fear, Fortitude, and the Future. And it's just a really quick read, but I think it kind of explains why I started Femmes, how anybody can do anything they want to make this world a better place, and you don't need anyone's fucking permission. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Welcome today on For the Sake of the Argument, one of my very favorite people. Aghogho Edevbie is running for Secretary of State.
Yep, that's right.
Yep, a little background. We've known each other for, I think, a little over 10 years.
Yeah.
Because I am from Ecorse.
Yes.
And you were running for House Rep. And Ecorse was one of the cities under the district you were running.
Exactly.
And I remember I liked you very much then, and I still like you very much now. And I'm very impressed by what you've been doing. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Don't be worried. It'll be rough, but I know you're up to it.
If it ain't rough, it ain't right, right?
I like that. If it ain't rough, it ain't right. You currently serve as Michigan's Deputy Secretary of State. Tell us, what does the Deputy Secretary of State do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really honored to be here with you on this podcast. I'm excited. It's been on our calendar for a week, so here we go. I got asked to be Deputy Secretary of State by Jocelyn back in 2023, and we talked a lot about what the role would be. And ultimately, what I do is I head up our policy. So our policy on branches, vehicles, driver's licenses, elections, all of that, I help lead not only the development of it, but also the implementation. And that can go in so many different directions.
You're running to become Michigan's Secretary of State next year in 26. Why, in God's name, it's such a lightning rod of a job. Why do you want to be our next Secretary of State?
My mom has asked me that question a number of times, and I always just talk about the moment we're in. And I think a lot back to November of last year. So we have an office space not too far from here in New Center in Detroit. And the whole entire senior team gathered there. And slowly but surely, as it was obvious that Trump was going to win, everybody just kind of left. And I was there just by myself thinking about this moment that we're in right now with everything that Trump is literally trying to do to rip apart our democracy, rip apart our election system. I knew that I had a special duty to continue the work that we've been doing, because ultimately, if you get rid of an electoral system, that's it for democracy. That's it for our country. We can always make an attempt to recover what we've lost under this administration if we have free and fair elections. If we don't, that's it. And there's nobody better in the state as the Deputy Secretary of State to assume the responsibilities and the roles of Secretary of State. And so I had to step up and do it.
Okay, because you've seen how things have been created, how things are running in those offices. Yeah. So you're uniquely qualified, you feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let me segue to this. What would you do differently than our current Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, has done? Are there changes that you would make?
I think I have my own unique background. I'm the son of immigrants. I am a lawyer who went to the University of Michigan. I have seen this job from every single conceivable angle. And what I want to do is be always accessible to the people. You're going to see me at different block club meetings, community meetings, on a weekly basis interacting with folks. But we're also going to make sure that our election system is a little bit stronger. One of the things that we really have to do is pass a Michigan Voting Rights Act. It is an absolute necessity because the Federal Voting Rights Act is about to expire, and we just cannot allow that to no longer protect Michigan voters. On top of that, we've got to prioritize faster election returns. They've got to be accurate, but one of the things that has always happened that has kind of led to some of the challenges we've seen is that we have, clerks working on their own schedule to get out election returns and doing it in a way that can sometimes be confusing to people. We've got to eliminate the confusion and ensure that people can understand the election system that they are ultimately represented by.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Michigan Voting Rights Act? What would that entail? What would that change?
So it's four things. Number one, the Michigan Voting Rights Act would codify the Federal Voting Rights Act, which was put into place in 1965. But it was not a permanent act. So every few years, we've had to renew it. And it was last renewed in 2005 for 25 years. So that's coming just around the corner.
Wow.
So we're going to codify that. Number two, we've always seen these lawsuits about redistricting. And ultimately, it's really hard to file those lawsuits if you don't have the right type of data. We're going to make that data accessible to everybody in the state of Michigan so you can hold election officials like me accountable for our actions. Number three, we're going to make sure that people who may speak English but don't read English very well can vote in the language that they're most comfortable reading. So more expanded language access rights. And number four, every single person in this state, regardless of their physical ability, should be able to vote as they are comfortable. No, you're only able to vote absentee. Some people want to vote in person. Some people want to have that experience. And we got to make sure that everybody, regardless of physical ability, has the right to vote in our state.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State is one of the top 3 executive positions in the state. So you'll have some influence over the direction of the Democratic Party if you're elected.
I hope so.
Do you think the party should stay moderate, or do you think they should go more progressive regarding future elections?
Yeah, I think we have to go into a more progressive direction. And I hesitate to use the word progressive because I think right now it's really about being okay with the status quo and actually doing something to fight against where we are. There are too many Democrats that treat this moment we're in like a game. This is not a game when we see ICE in the streets, literally kidnapping people, when we have healthcare being stolen from millions of Michiganders and people across our country. It's not a joke when we have the President of the United States trying to suppress free speech in our country. That means that we have to do something different because we're not here by accident. We're here because there have been some fundamental disappointments and people don't believe in the Democratic Party to lead change. So we have to restore that confidence.
There are a number of ballot petitions coming up in Michigan for 2026. The most relevant to your office, the Secretary of State, is Rank My Vote to establish ranked choice voting in the state. Are you personally in support of this? And if it passes, how would you prepare to administer it in the 2028 elections?
So on the first part, unfortunately, because of my position as Deputy Secretary of State, I'm involved in the process of certifying it for the ballot. So I'm going to punt on that. But on the second part, look, there is nobody more qualified than me to implement this. Because one of the reasons why I was hired as Deputy Secretary of State is because I know how to implement things. I implemented Proposal 2, which resulted in 1.2 million Michiganders voting early for the very first time last year. And we had to develop a whole new electronic poll book, all new procedures, and get clerks ready, 1,600 across our state for that momentous change. We had to negotiate with different vendors. I led on all of that. And there are going to be a lot of changes that come with rank my choice if it passes of having to reprogram our voting machines, educating the public. A big momentous change like that has to be led by somebody who actually knows how to do the job.
Wow, 1,600 individual clerks in our state of Michigan.
Yeah, about that.
That the Secretary of State's office has to oversee during elections.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot because every single clerk has their own, the way of doing things. And you have to make sure that things are uniform because if they're not, we're violating the law. And there's equal protection under the law in our Constitution that every single person is guaranteed. And that's how I think about it. But it's also, I think, clerks, when they have that clear direction, they can sometimes talk to their fellow clerks and say, well, this is a thing that we've got to implement. How are you doing it? And they can elaborate. And of course, there's some flexibility for every community because we know voting in rural America is not like voting in Detroit and vice versa. And we have to have that flexibility there too.
But you still have guardrails so
Exactly.
that somebody can't, go off and do their own thing outside the boundaries of what's acceptable.
Oh, yeah. And I'll point out one thing that happened last year. There is a provision in our law, I think it's MCL 168.512, where you can literally have someone file an affidavit and try and challenge your registration and get you removed off the rolls. And a lot of MAGA Republicans have taken advantage and tried to kick people systematically off the rolls in the last few years. So we worked hard, and I helped lead this fight to educate our clerks on how you properly implement this provision of law so that it wasn't taken advantage of. Because there were MAGA. I got calls from people like Jamie Churches and other candidates around our state in Democratic seats where these MAGA Republicans were literally trying to, just completely overturn our system of laws.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for alerting us. This is the most important question I have for you today. This is what I want to know, and I'm sure everybody else does too. I even hate using these words. Dominion voting systems, threw up in my mouth, was recently sold to a former GOP operative. Surprise, surprise. Do we need to worry about partisan election meddling?
Well, I think we should always be worried. This is a time where being alert and clear-eyed about the threats we're facing will make us more prepared to overcome them. So when I learned about the change in Dominion, I picked up the phone and I called John, who's the former CEO of Dominion. He and I got to know each other throughout the process of implementing Proposal 2 because we had to negotiate with them to get more voting machines to implement early voting. So he and I have a really good relationship. And I asked him some really direct questions about the sale and should I be concerned? And, he has explained to me that he believes in the new company and that this isn't something that we should be afraid of. So I want to reassure our listeners that I think that this is in the right direction. But I'm going to have more conversations with the new CEO and ask some really, direct conversations, have some direct conversations with him to ensure that we're not jeopardizing our election system because we fought too hard. Too many people have fought and died literally for our rights. And we're not going to let anybody overturn that. And that's my commitment to you and to your listeners that I'm on top of this. I'm literally having calls with our senior team at the Secretary of State's office with Dominion, with Liberty Vote to ensure that nothing's going to go astray.
Thank you for that because in a vacuum, anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I was never a conspiracy theorist until I was. And
Yeah.
now even I worry
Yeah.
about what the failures can be that we know nothing of. The innocent, naive public, putting our little votes in. We want to make sure that we're represented. So thank you for
Yeah.
assuring us of that. What, in your mind, is the biggest threat to Michigan's democracy right now?
Voter confidence. Voter confidence. Because why was Trump able, besides being the president of the United States, which I think people naturally, they want to think, the president's going to say the truth. He took advantage of that trust in 2020, And he also took advantage of the fact that our election system at times can be very mysterious. It's not always straightforward. And that's why I say we have to do a better job of getting results out faster, and they've got to be accurate. I'm not going to, pull back or jeopardize accuracy, but we have to be creating a system that really is ensuring that people understand how it works and that there's clarity and transparency at every step of the way.
Okay, I have a question. When I used to vote in e-course way back in the day when I'd pull up in my horse and buggy, you'd go into the school 2 when it was still standing, and we used to use these machines that you had to flip a lever.
Yeah.
Now I'm voting out here, and I go into this 3-sided thing, and I just use my pencil, and then I feed it into a machine when I come out. Are there still those lever machines in the world in Michigan?
Well, they are not allowed to be used to vote. It's all on paper ballot. But we do have a couple of those machines in the Department of State in storage that I've seen, and they're pretty cool to play around with. But ultimately, we want to have a system that can be audited. And so after every single election, we have audits. And in 2020, we had over 250 audits statewide of that election that showed that the results were accurate.
Wow.
And, we continue to innovate and evolve because, look, I always say this, Trump is a moron. He's an idiot. We all know that. But the people around him, they're sharks. They are very smart people who are intent on destroying the fabric of this nation. And we have to outthink them. We have to think 2 and 3 steps ahead. And that is my job at the Secretary of State's office in leading policy, is being prepared for the things that we don't see next. And I was just in D.C. Last week, meeting with a lot of different election experts, talking about the threats that are literally on our doorstep. And we're ready. And I'm going to be ready on day one to do this job as Secretary of State.
I believe that you are. Okay, now we get to enter the fun part.
Okay.
Although I've had fun so far. I hope you have too.
I have too. This has been good.
This is our lightning round. And what do you think? Paper ballots or all digital voting?
Always paper ballots. Most secure.
Somebody had explained this to me. There's always one question that escapes my older mind. How many tabs do you have open on your browser right now? Be honest.
At least 30. There's a lot.
Okay.
We have our campaign finance and deadline today, so we're working pretty hard to raise the cash.
One thing Michiganders love arguing about more than politics, what would that be in your mind?
Michigan State.
Okay.
That's coming up this Saturday. Go Blue.
Okay, there you go. And lastly, finish this. No kings, but yes to...
Apple pie. That's my favorite dessert. Apple pie is excellent.
All right. Well, listen, Aghogho, I can't thank you enough for being on my podcast today for the sake of the argument.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Keep watching our backs.
Will
and
do.
I hope all of us might sleep a little better tonight, knowing a little more than we did when you first came on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I hope to be back again soon.
Anytime.